My aunt told my kids their mom's a bee. She's not. So I told aunt's kids why their dad really left. Truth destroyed her. Now, neither my kids nor hers talk to her. Christmas is way quieter now. Hey, Reddit! My aunt decided to tell my kids their mother was unfaithful during our marriage. Complete lie. So I told her kids the real reason their father abandoned them 20 years ago. Turns out some truths are better left buried. Now, she's got nobody, and I sleep like a baby. But let me back up and give you the full picture. I'm Betty D. Oliver, 41 years old, and I work as a senior logistics coordinator for a manufacturing company in Ohio. Started on the warehouse floor at 19. Worked my way up through inventory management and operations, and now I coordinate supply chain logistics for 3 facilities across the Midwest, make around $90,000 a year, own my house outright, and drive a 7-year-old Honda Accord that runs perfectly fine. My husband John is a high school English teacher. He's been at the same school for 12 years, makes about $55,000, and genuinely loves what he does. He's one of those teachers kids remember years later. The one who actually cared whether they understood Shakespeare or just memorized quotes for tests. We met 15 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. Got married 2 years later and have 2 kids together. Emma just turned 13, honor roll student, plays volleyball, wants to be a veterinarian. Our daughter Jake is 11, into robotics and video games. The kid who can explain computer programming concepts I don't even pretend to understand. They're good kids, not perfect, but good. They do their homework without being asked, help around the house when asked, and generally don't give us the kind of headaches I remember giving my parents at their age. John and I have what I'd call a solid marriage. Not Instagram perfect, not the kind of relationship that makes single people feel inadequate, just solid. We still like each other after 15 years. Still laugh at the same dumb jokes. Still choose to spend time together even when we don't have to. We've been through the usual marriage stuff. Financial stress when I was between jobs 6 years ago, the exhaustion of having 2 kids under 3, disagreements about parenting approaches, and whose turn it is to deal with the broken dishwasher. But we've never had the kind of problems that break marriages. No infidelity, no lies, no hidden bank accounts, or secret second families. Just 2 people who decided to build something together and have been doing exactly that for the past 15 years. Which brings me to my Aunt Linda, my father's older sister, 62 years old, and the kind of person who treats other people's happiness like a personal insult. She's been divorced for over 20 years, lives alone in a 3-bedroom house she can barely afford, and has spent the last 2 decades convinced that everyone else's life is somehow easier or less fair than hers. Linda was married to a guy named Thomas for about 8 years. They had 3 kids together, my cousins Rebecca, Daniel, and Amanda. When the youngest was 5, Thomas just disappeared one weekend. Told Linda he was going fishing with some buddies from work. Never came back. No note, no explanation, no forwarding address, just gone. For years, Linda told everyone he'd abandoned the family without warning. Said he was selfish. Said he couldn't handle being a father. Said he'd probably run off with some woman he met at work. She built this entire narrative where she was the victim of a deadbeat dad who couldn't deal with adult responsibilities. Got a lot of sympathy from family members, a lot of help with the kids, a lot of understanding when money was tight. The thing is, I always suspected there was more to that story. Thomas wasn't perfect, but he didn't seem like the type to just vanish. He was present at family functions, involved with his kids, seemed genuinely committed to making things work. The sudden departure never quite added up to me, but I was 18 when it happened and didn't think too much about it. Linda has this pattern where she needs to be the center of attention at all times. If someone announces good news, she immediately pivots the conversation to her problems. If someone's struggling, she one-ups them with how much worse she has it. She's the relative everyone tolerates, but nobody actually enjoys being around. My parents deal with her because she's family. They'll invite her to holidays, help her out when she claims she can't make rent, listen to her complain for hours about her ungrateful kids and impossible life circumstances. They've told me multiple times that Linda is going through a lot, and we all need to be understanding. I've been understanding for 20 years. I've loaned her money I never saw again. I've helped her move twice. I've listened to countless phone calls where she dissects everything wrong with her life, while never acknowledging her role in any of it. I've bitten my tongue through family dinners, where she makes passive-aggressive comments about John's career or our parenting choices, but I drew boundaries. Linda wasn't allowed to babysit our kids after she left 5-year-old Emma alone in a park while she went to a nearby store. She wasn't welcome to just drop by our house unannounced after she showed up demanding to borrow our car for a week without explanation. I maintained basic politeness but kept significant distance. John, to his credit, never complained much about Linda. He'd roll his eyes after family gatherings and make observations about Linda's behavior that were spot on, but he never pushed me to cut ties completely. He understood family dynamics are complicated and respected my choice to maintain minimal contact. The problem started about 6 months ago when Linda apparently decided John was the reason for all her problems. I'm still not entirely sure what triggered it. Maybe it was seeing us at a family wedding looking happy together. Maybe it was John getting recognized at a school assembly for his teaching. Maybe Linda just needed a new target for her resentment. She started making little comments at family functions. Observations about how John seemed distant or cold. Questions about whether everything was okay in our marriage delivered with fake concern. Mentions of how she'd heard teaching environments can be stressful and lead people to make poor choices. Nothing overt enough to confront directly, just constant small needles designed to plant seeds of doubt. My parents noticed, but did what they always did with Linda. Made excuses. She's lonely. She's struggling. She doesn't mean anything by it. Just ignore her. I pushed back harder than usual. Told them the comments needed to stop, but they thought I was overreacting. Then came the incident that changed everything. It was a Saturday afternoon in late September. John had a professional development workshop at his school, one of those mandatory all-day things about new curriculum standards and assessment strategies. I was home with Emma and Jake, planning to take them to the park and maybe grab pizza for dinner. Around 2 in the afternoon, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but figured it was a package delivery or maybe a neighbor. Instead, I opened the door to find Linda standing on my porch. She was dressed up more than usual, like she'd put effort into her appearance specifically for this visit. Hair done, makeup applied, wearing what looked like a new outfit. She had this expression on her face I couldn't quite read. Something between smug and nervous. "Linda, I wasn't expecting you." "I know, I need to talk to the kids. It's important." Every instinct told me to shut this down immediately. Linda showing up unannounced, asking to talk to my children without explanation after months of weird comments about my husband. Nothing about this felt right. About what? It's family business. They deserve to know the truth. What truth? She pushed past me into the house without waiting for permission. I should have physically blocked her. Should have told her to leave immediately, but I was so surprised by the audacity that I hesitated for just a moment too long. Linda walked straight into the living room where Emma and Jake were watching something on television. I followed, already pulling out my phone. "Emma, Jake, we need to have a serious conversation," Linda announced in this theatrical voice. My kids looked at her, then at me, confused. They barely knew Linda beyond seeing her at occasional family gatherings. She wasn't someone who called them on birthdays or sent Christmas gifts. She was just the aunt who Mom said hi to at Grandma and Grandpa's house. "Whatever you're about to say, don't," I warned, moving between Linda and the kids. She stepped around me, addressing them directly. "Your mother doesn't want me to tell you this, but you deserve to know the truth about your mother." My blood turned to ice. Emma's eyes went wide. Jake looked terrified. "Linda, get out of my house right now." She ignored me completely. "Your mother has been unfaithful to your father. She's been seeing other men behind his back. I have proof, and I think you deserve to know what kind of person she really is." The words hung in the air like poison. Emma started crying immediately. Jake's face went pale, her expression shifting from confusion to horror to something that looked like her whole world was collapsing. I grabbed Linda's arm and physically dragged her toward the door. She resisted, still talking, still spewing her lies. "I'm trying to protect these children. They deserve to know their mother is—" I got her out the front door and slammed it shut behind her. My hands were shaking. I could hear Emma sobbing in the living room. I could see Jake frozen in place on the couch, both of them processing what they just heard. Linda pounded on the door for a solid 5 minutes, shouting about truth and family duty and protecting children from deception. I ignored her completely, focusing on my kids. Emma was hysterical, 13 years old, already dealing with the normal nightmare of middle school social dynamics, and now believing her mother had betrayed the family. Jake had retreated into herself. That shutdown mode kids do when reality becomes too overwhelming to process. I sat them both down and told them clearly and directly that what Linda had said was completely false. Their mother had never been unfaithful. There were no other men. Linda was lying. I explained it as calmly as possible, but they were too upset to fully absorb it. Why would she say that if it's not true? Emma demanded through tears. Because she's unhappy with her own life and wants other people to be miserable too. But she said she had proof. She doesn't, because there is no proof, because it didn't happen. When John got home 3 hours later, both kids were still visibly shaken. Emma ran to her father immediately, hugging him and crying again. Jake hung back, watching John with this guarded expression that broke my heart. John looked at me over Emma's head, eyes full of questions. I mouthed, "Linda," and watched his face shift from confusion to understanding to fury in about 3 seconds. That night, after we'd gotten both kids calmed down and into bed, John and I sat at the kitchen table. He was shaking, not with fear, but with rage. She told our children I'm unfaithful, to their faces, said she had proof, said they deserved to know the truth. What proof could she possibly claim to have? There is no proof. She's making it up because she's a miserable person who wants everyone else to be miserable too. John put his head in his hands. They're going to believe it. Kids that age hearing something like that. Even if we tell them it's not true, I know it. Emma asked me tonight if I still loved you. Jake wouldn't look at me during dinner. This is going to damage them. He was right. Over the next few weeks, I watched my kids process Linda's accusation in real time. Emma became withdrawn. Her grades slipped. She stopped talking about school. Jake started having nightmares. Both of them watched John differently now, with this guardedness that hadn't been there before. We tried family counseling. The therapist was helpful, working with Emma and Jake to understand that people sometimes lie for complicated reasons, but the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted in their minds during crucial developmental years. I was ready to go to war. John wanted to pursue legal action, talk to lawyers about slander and defamation. My parents, when I told them what happened, were horrified, but still made excuses for Linda. She's been under a lot of stress. She's not thinking clearly. Maybe she misunderstood something she saw. She didn't misunderstand anything, I said to my father over the phone. She deliberately told my children their mother is a cheater. She looked them in the eyes and lied to damage my marriage and hurt my kids. I know. Linda crossed a line, but maybe if we all sit down together. No, there's no sitting down together. There's no talking this out. She declared war on my family and I'm going to finish it. Betty, she's family. So are John and Emma and Jake, and I choose them. I spent the next month doing something I should have done years ago. I tracked down Thomas, Linda's ex-husband, the man who allegedly abandoned his family without warning, 20 years earlier. It wasn't particularly hard. Thomas kept his same last name, was living about 2 hours away in a small town outside Cleveland. He'd remarried, had a successful career as an insurance claims adjuster, seemed to have built a stable, quiet life. I called him on a Tuesday evening. He was immediately wary when I identified myself as Linda's niece. I haven't talked to anyone from that family in 20 years, he said carefully. Whatever Linda told you about me. I want to know what really happened, the truth, why you left. Long silence, then, "You sure you want to know? It's not a pretty story." "I'm sure." We agreed to meet at a diner halfway between our towns. I drove out on a Saturday morning, telling John I had some errands to run, but not mentioning where I was really going. Thomas looked older than I remembered, but healthier. He'd put on weight, but in a good way, like someone who'd been under enormous stress and finally relaxed. He shook my hand firmly, and we sat in a corner booth. "Linda probably told everyone I abandoned the family," he started without preamble, "that I couldn't handle being a father and ran off with some woman from work." "That's exactly what she said." He laughed bitterly. "Of course she did. Truth is, I left because Linda was unfaithful. Not once, not twice. Multiple men over our entire marriage. I found out about the first one when Amanda was just a baby. Linda swore it was over, that she'd made a mistake, begged me to stay. I believed her because I was young and stupid and didn't want my kids growing up in a broken home." He pulled out his phone and showed me photos of old documents he'd apparently kept digitized. Bank statements showing charges at hotels Linda had no business being at. Credit card receipts from restaurants in cities she'd never mentioned visiting. Paper phone bills from the pre-cell phone era showing hours of calls to numbers he didn't recognize. "The final straw came when I found out Rebecca might not be mine," he said. Linda had been seeing a guy from her work around the time Rebecca was conceived. I got a paternity test done secretly. Turned out Rebecca was mine after all. But finding out Linda wasn't even sure whose kid she was carrying, that broke something in me. He took a sip of coffee, staring out the window. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't pretend. Couldn't keep being the faithful husband to a woman who'd humiliated me for years. So yeah, I left. I told Linda I was done, that I couldn't be around her anymore, and I walked away. What about the kids? I asked. I tried. God, I tried. I sent child support every month, never missed a payment. I called, I sent letters, I asked to see them. Linda blocked everything, told the kids I didn't want them, that I'd started a new family and forgotten about them. After a few years of being shut out, I gave up. Figured they were better off without me than with me fighting Linda and making their lives harder. He showed me more documents, copies of support payments going back years, letters he'd sent that were returned unopened, court documents where he tried to establish visitation rights, but Linda fought him at every turn, claiming he was dangerous and unstable. Why didn't you tell people the truth? I said. Who would believe me? Linda's good at playing the victim. She'd already painted me as the bad guy. If I'd started talking about her affairs, I'd have looked like a vindictive ex trying to destroy his children's mother. So I kept quiet, paid my support, and built a new life. I sat there processing everything. Linda had spent 20 years playing the abandoned single mother, accepting sympathy and help from family, all while hiding the truth that she'd destroyed her own marriage. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because you asked, and because I'm tired of her getting away with it. My kids are adults now. Rebecca's 33, Daniel's 31, Amanda's 28. They still think I'm the villain who abandoned them. They won't speak to me, won't respond to messages. Linda's lies cost me my relationship with my children. He leaned forward, eyes intense. If you're asking these questions, it means Linda's done something. She's hurt someone else. And honestly, I hope you burn her world down. She deserves every bit of karma coming her way. I thanked him for his time and drove home with a folder full of documents he'd copied for me. Every piece of evidence proving Linda had been unfaithful throughout her marriage. Every record of Thomas trying to maintain contact with his kids while Linda blocked him. Every proof that the story she'd told for 20 years was a complete fabrication. John found me at the kitchen table that night, documents spread everywhere. What is all this? I told him everything. Thomas's story, the evidence, Linda's decades-long lie. By the time I finished, John was pacing the kitchen. She accused you of exactly what she did. She tried to destroy our family the same way she destroyed hers. That's exactly what she did. What are you going to do with this? I looked at the pile of documents. I'm going to tell the truth. All of it. To everyone who needs to hear it. That's going to explode the family. Good. Let it explode. I'm done protecting people who use family as a shield for terrible behavior. I started with my parents, called them over on a Sunday afternoon, sat them down in our living room, and laid out everything. I showed them the documents, told them Thomas's story, explained in detail how Linda had lied for 20 years. My mother went pale. My father's jaw clenched tighter and tighter as I talked. They'd spent 2 decades helping Linda, believing her story, treating Thomas like the villain. Now they were learning it was all backwards. Why didn't Thomas say anything? Mom asked weakly. He tried. Linda shut him down, played the victim, and everyone believed her because she's family and he was just the ex-husband. We gave her so much money over the years, Dad said quietly. Every time she claimed she couldn't make rent or feed the kids, we helped. We thought we were supporting a woman abandoned by her husband. You were supporting someone who destroyed her own marriage, then lied about it for sympathy and cash. My mother looked physically sick. What about Rebecca and Daniel and Amanda? Do they know? They think their father abandoned them. They've spent their entire adult lives believing their dad didn't want them, and it's not true. My parents sat in silence, processing. Finally, Dad looked up. What do you want us to do? Tell them. Tell Linda's kids the truth. They deserve to know why their father really left and that he didn't abandon them. That will destroy Linda. Linda tried to destroy my marriage and traumatize my children with lies. She doesn't get protection anymore. 2 days later, my parents called a family meeting, invited Rebecca, Daniel, Amanda, and Linda. I wasn't there, but my father called me afterward and told me what happened. Dad laid out everything methodically, showed Thomas's evidence, explained the timeline, made it clear Linda had been unfaithful throughout her marriage and had lied about the reasons for the divorce. He explained that Thomas had tried to maintain contact, but Linda blocked him, that their father had never abandoned them. Linda's initial reaction was denial, called it all lies, said Thomas had fabricated everything, claimed this was some conspiracy to make her look bad. But the evidence was overwhelming. Decades of documentation don't lie. Rebecca apparently started crying. Daniel got very quiet. Amanda stood up and walked out without saying a word to Linda. Linda tried to follow Amanda, but Daniel blocked her. Dad said he told her not to come near any of them until they decided how to handle this. Rebecca couldn't even look at her mother, just sat there crying while reading through the documents. When my father finished relaying the meeting, the house felt unnaturally still. John came up behind me, set his hands on my shoulders, and squeezed. "What now?" he asked. "Now," I said, looking at the stack of papers still on the table, "we start repairing what she tried to break." Over the next 2 weeks, the fallout continued. Rebecca tracked down Thomas's contact information and called him. I don't know what they talked about, but she later told my parents it was the first real conversation she'd had with her father in 20 years. Daniel and Amanda followed suit. All 3 of Linda's kids started rebuilding relationships with the father they thought had abandoned them, while simultaneously cutting their mother out of their lives completely. Linda tried calling me repeatedly. I never answered. She showed up at my house twice, and I threatened to call the police. She sent messages through other family members trying to explain or justify what she'd done. I ignored all of it. But the most important impact was on Emma and Jake. Once they learned the truth about Linda, that she'd lied about their father because she'd done exactly what she accused me of, something shifted in them. The doubt that had been planted started to fade. They could see the pattern. Linda was someone who lied to hurt people. Emma came to me about a month after everything came out. "I'm sorry I believed Aunt Linda, even for a little bit." "You're a kid," I said. "Adults you're supposed to trust told you something horrible. That's not your fault." "I knew Dad wouldn't cheat," she said quietly. "I knew it. But hearing someone say it out loud made me question everything." That's what people like Linda do. They plant seeds of doubt even when there's no reason for doubt to exist. "Is Aunt Linda going to be at Christmas?" "No, she's not invited to our house anymore. And if other family wants to include her in their gatherings, we probably won't be there." Emma hugged me tight. "Good. I don't want to see her ever again." Jake was processing everything differently, but when I asked him directly how she was doing, she said something that surprised me. "I'm glad you showed everyone what she really was. She tried to break our family, and you made sure everyone knew the truth." My daughter understood justice at 11 years old better than most adults I know. That December, we had the quietest Christmas in family history. Linda wasn't invited to my parents' house. My parents made it clear that any family gathering they hosted would not include her unless and until she took genuine responsibility for decades of lies. Linda's kids all spent Christmas with Thomas and his wife, the first time they'd celebrated with their father in over 20 years. Rebecca posted a photo on social media. Her, Daniel, Amanda, Thomas, and Thomas's wife, all together, smiling. The caption just said, "Finally." Linda spent Christmas alone. I know because my mother, despite everything, still felt guilty enough to call and check on her. Linda apparently spent the day crying and trying to convince Mom that everyone was being unfair to her. "Did she apologize?" I asked when Mom told me about the call. "No. She's still claiming Thomas must have forged documents or that we're all misunderstanding the situation. She won't admit what she did." Then nothing changes. It's been 6 months since the truth came out. Linda is effectively estranged from the entire family. Her own children have moved on, building relationships with their father and moving forward with their lives without her. My parents maintain minimal contact out of obligation, but have made it clear they won't be helping her financially anymore. Emma's grades are back up. She made the varsity volleyball team as an 8th grader. Jake joined a robotics competition team and has been thriving. Both kids have stopped looking at John with guardedness. Our family has healed from the wound Linda tried to inflict. I ran into Rebecca at a grocery store last month. We talked for a few minutes in the produce section. She thanked me for exposing the truth. Said learning about her father's real story had changed her entire understanding of her childhood. "I wasted so many years angry at the wrong person," she said. "I missed out on having a relationship with my dad because Mom lied. I can't get that time back." "You have time now?" "Yeah, we're actually planning a trip together this summer. Just me and Dad going to spend a week hiking in Colorado. Make up for lost time." She hesitated, then asked, "Does your mom ever talk about my mom?" Sometimes she feels guilty. I think she wants to help but knows Linda needs to face consequences. Rebecca sighed. Mom keeps calling me, leaving voicemails about how everyone abandoned her and she's all alone. Part of me feels bad. Don't, I said. She made her choices. She lied for 20 years. She tried to destroy my marriage to cover her own guilt. She doesn't get sympathy for facing the natural consequences of her actions. Rebecca nodded slowly. You're right. I just needed to hear someone else say it. The family dynamics have permanently shifted. Gatherings are smaller now, but more genuine. The people who show up actually want to be there. They aren't performing obligation or maintaining fake peace. Linda's absence has created space for honesty. My cousin Daniel told me at Easter that the family feels lighter without her constant drama. I didn't realize how much energy she sucked from every gathering until she wasn't there anymore. We can actually enjoy being together now. Linda made one last attempt to crash a family barbecue my parents hosted in May. She just showed up, walked into their backyard like nothing had happened, tried to join conversations. My father quietly but firmly escorted her back to her car and told her she needed to leave. She tried arguing, tried crying, tried claiming we were all being cruel. Dad just repeated, "You need to leave. You're not welcome here." I watched from the porch, felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no guilt, just nothing. She'd become a non-entity to me, someone whose actions had consequences she finally had to face. John came up beside me, slipping his hand into mine. You think she'll ever take responsibility? No, people like Linda don't. They'll rewrite history in their heads until they believe their own lies. She'll die convinced she's the victim. Does that bother you? Not even a little bit. She can believe whatever she wants. The people who matter know the truth. Emma and Jake were playing cornhole with their cousins, laughing and talking trash. Normal kid stuff. No visible trauma from Linda's attempted sabotage. They'd moved on. Thomas showed up about an hour into the gathering, the first time he'd been invited to a family event in 2 decades. My parents had extended the invitation through Rebecca, and he'd accepted nervously. Watching him interact with his adult children, seeing the comfortable rapport they'd rebuilt, seeing Amanda's kids call him Grandpa for the first time, that felt like justice. Not revenge, just the natural order reasserting itself when lies stop holding it down. He came over to thank me at one point. Rebecca told me you're the one who tracked me down and exposed everything. Linda tried to destroy my marriage. Figured she'd already destroyed yours. Seemed fair to let people know the truth. He smiled. Still, you gave me my kids back. I'll never be able to repay that. Don't need repayment, just needed the truth to come out. My mother approached as Thomas walked away. She looked tired, but more at peace than I'd seen her in years. I owe you an apology, she said. Your father and I enabled Linda for decades. We believed her stories, made excuses for her behavior, asked you to tolerate things you shouldn't have had to tolerate. We failed you and John and the kids. You didn't know the whole truth, I said. We should have questioned more, should have looked harder at patterns, should have protected you better when Linda started making accusations about John. You're doing better now. That's what matters. She hugged me tight. I'm proud of you for protecting your family, for standing up when it mattered, for doing what your father and I should have done years ago. Looking around the backyard, I saw the family Linda could have had if she'd been honest. Adult children who might have understood that affairs happen and marriages end. Grandchildren she could have known. A life that didn't have to be defined by lies and isolation. She'd chosen differently, chosen to lie, to play victim, to manipulate. And now she was alone, cut off from everyone she'd spent decades claiming to love. The kids came running over, begging for someone to judge their cornhole competition. John volunteered, leading both teams over to review their scores and settle the dispute. Emma was arguing her point with the kind of intensity she usually reserved for book report presentations. Thomas's wife brought out a homemade pie she'd baked. Rebecca announced she'd gotten engaged. Daniel mentioned his promotion at work. Amanda showed off photos from her daughter's dance recital. Normal family moments, no longer overshadowed by Linda's need for attention and drama. This was what family gatherings should feel like. People who chose to be there, sharing genuine moments without walking on eggshells around someone's fragile ego. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy. Linda. Still not understanding that she destroyed her own life, still convinced everyone else was the problem. I blocked the number without responding. She didn't deserve my energy anymore, didn't deserve anyone's energy. She'd made her bed with 20 years of lies and manipulation. Now she could sleep in it alone. John noticed me checking my phone and raised an eyebrow. I shook my head slightly. Nothing important. He understood and turned back to mediating the great cornhole debate of the evening. Later that night, driving home with John and the kids, Emma asked from the back seat, "Is Aunt Linda ever going to say sorry?" "Probably not, honey." "That's sad. She could have just told the truth from the beginning, and none of this would have happened." Some people would rather lie and be victims than admit they made mistakes. "That's a stupid way to live," Jake said, half asleep against the window. John laughed softly. "Yeah, kiddo, it really is." At home, after the kids went to bed, we sat on the back porch. Summer evening, crickets chirping. The kind of peaceful moment that would have been impossible 6 months earlier when we were managing the fallout from Linda's accusations. "Think we'll ever hear from her again?" John asked. "Probably. She'll keep trying, but it won't matter. The truth is out. Everyone knows what she did. She's got no power anymore." "Your mom looked happier tonight." "She's not carrying Linda's problems anymore. Neither is Dad. They can actually enjoy family time. And the kids seem okay." "Better than okay. They bounce back because they're resilient. And because we dealt with the problem instead of enabling it." John leaned against my shoulder. "Thank you for protecting us, for not letting her lies win." "That's not something you need to thank me for. Protecting my family is just what you do." Still, a lot of people would have kept the peace. Let Linda keep playing victim. Avoided the confrontation. "Yeah, well," I said with a small smile, "I'm not most people. And our kids deserve to know their father is exactly who we've always told them he is. Someone faithful, honest, and who loves them completely." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. My phone buzzed again. Another message from a blocked number. Linda trying different phones to get through. I ignored it completely. The stars were bright that night. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and pie from Thomas's wife's dessert. Inside, our kids were laughing about something on TV. For the first time in a long time, peace didn't feel fragile. It felt permanent.